was that for me, it was a super lonely place. When I was in 6th grade, I broke out with this skin disease. Y'all are gonna think I'm lying, this is 100% the truth. I broke out with this weird skin disease where my blood vessels seeped into my skin and I had like red dots all over my body, right? And so it literally looked like I had like spots, like a leopard or something like that. It was crazy. No questions. Not from you. So.
No, it's a legit question.
All right, what's your legit question?
Did it look like what Michael Phelps did? Like
it did. Actually, it did. It looked really similar to that, except I had it all over my body, like face, body, arms, legs, like all over myself. So as you can imagine, as a 6th/7th grader, people were not the nicest to me because of it. My friends all they made fun of me for it. I played sports and stuff, but I got too sick to play sports. So even my sports friends, I couldn't hang out with them anymore because I couldn't go to practice. I wasn't allowed to run around, have physical exercise. I was just I went from being the cooler kid to the kid everybody just made fun of. And it got to be a super lonely place. I think maybe you haven't been quite to that extent, but I think we've all experienced that sort of loneliness in school before. Maybe you can think of a time that you felt like your parents didn't understand you, and so you were dealing with a situation all by yourself. Maybe you think about a time where you felt like you didn't really have any friends, that your friends were all going off and doing their own thing and you were just hanging out by yourself all the time. Maybe nobody understands the situation that you're in, what you're going through. You feel like you can't open up to people. That's a super lonely way to live, right? Now compare that to the happier moments. Most of my happier moments were when I was with people. It was when I was playing football and we just won a game and I was celebrating with a team. It wasn't a thing by myself. It was a thing with the group. It was times that I was going out to cook out with my friends. So the day Cookout and Indian Trail opened, my friends and I all went and we sat there and we waited 4 hours for food and it was so much fun. I'll never forget that, but it was so much fun because I was with a group of people, right? It's those moments that we're with friends, that we're having fun, we're enjoying life. You're building that community that you feel the most together, the least alone. And in my own life, it's the happiest moments of my life. The thing that we know from the Bible is that we weren't created to be alone. In Genesis, in the very beginning, when God created man, he saw that man was by himself, and so he created a woman to live with him. He said man was not meant to be alone. We weren't ever supposed to be by ourselves. We're supposed to be living in community. When we look at the church as a whole, in Acts 2, as the church is beginning, we see the church as a group of people that are coming together to live life together in communities. It wasn't a bunch of solitary people. Even Paul, somebody that we think of as one of the greatest missionaries of the early church, he's done more for early Christianity than anybody else arguably ever since. He never chose to live life by himself. He always had people that surrounded him. So we're going to take a few minutes and we're going to read through Acts 2, 42 through 47. I'm going to read it aloud and we're going to kind of go through it and see what it means to live in Christian community. What that difference is between what it means to live by yourself versus what it means to live in a group with Christians in that Christian community. So, starting in verse 42. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, and to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their numbers daily those who were being saved. So we see a couple things about the early church community right there. The first two things we see right in verse 42, the very first verse I read, was they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching. So that's kind of like what we do here, what we do in Sunday mornings at church, what we do when you sit down and read your Bibles at night. You're learning what it means to follow Jesus. You're devoting yourselves to the Bible. You're devoting yourselves to becoming more like Jesus. The second thing that we see is that they devoted themselves to fellowship. See, so devoting yourselves to apostles' teaching would be learning about the Bible. Devoting yourselves to fellowship means devoting yourselves to one another. It means coming together for stuff like this where we hang out and we play dumb games that are made up on the fly that are really fun. And you hang out with each other and you build friendships and you build relationships and you get to have a good time. That's fellowship, right? It means coming together to eat meals and have so much fun. It means having people's numbers, calling them up, texting people, you having a good week. Fellowship. It's that building relationship. It's the building of a community with each other. Verses 44 and verse 45 then say that they did everything they could to serve one another and to serve the community. When they saw people who had need, they went out and helped them. When they knew of needs in their own community, they helped those people. So for instance, say, I know Cece's going through something. I'd be like, yo, what's going on? Can I help you with something? You know what I mean? Like, you were there for it. If you know I'm going through something, then you're there for me. We're helping each other. It means when we have opportunities to go serve in the community, we go and do it together. We're devoting ourselves to each other to go do things as a Christian community, right? So basically, Christian community means that we come together as a group of Christian people who want to live life together and become more like Jesus together. See, and those things are like pretty inherently connected to each other. When we choose to live life together, when we choose to become a group of people that are serving Jesus as one, we automatically put ourselves aligned to becoming more like Jesus because we're surrounding ourselves with other people who want to do the same thing. Think about it like this. How many of you guys play sports or have ever played a sport? Anybody? When you're practicing, when you're putting in hours and hours practicing, you're hanging out with the same group of people every single day, just about, a couple times a week maybe. You have the same goal in mind. You're all devoting yourselves to becoming better at whatever sport you're doing so that you guys can be better at life or better at that sport, right? It's the same thing when you spend time in Christian community. You're devoting yourselves to each other, you're spending time with each other with the hope of becoming more like Jesus. Now the big differences between something like a school, club or sport or something like that and us is that we have one goal in mind. We have one purpose, and that purpose is Jesus. When we read in Acts, the reason that they got together, the reason they devoted themselves to each other wasn't because they were great people. It wasn't because they were all of the same social rank. When you read the book of Acts, you see that some people were like handymen. You see some people were Jewish leaders. You see some people worked for the government. It's people across cultural, social lines coming together. It wasn't people that were all rich. It wasn't people that were all poor. It wasn't people all of the same class. It wasn't anything like that. They had nothing in common except Jesus. And they came together for that purpose. They came together because they loved Jesus, they devoted themselves to Jesus, and they wanted to be more like him. So it doesn't mean you have to be perfect. I think we talked about that the other week. We live in grace now. We live under the grace of Jesus. So just as your foundational point of your salvation, your foundational point of your relationship with Jesus is founded on that grace, so is your relationship with each other. So is the reason that you come together, the reason we meet together here, is because of Jesus. We don't try to be perfect people. We don't try to have perfect relationships with each other, but we try to point each other to Jesus. So you guys remember a couple weeks ago, and I told you some of my story. To sum it up for if you guys weren't here, I got into a lot of trouble for a little while. I was living that double life where I was a Christian and I wasn't a Christian at the same time, right? I was kind of doing my own thing and claiming to be a Christian. Came to this point where I had to make a choice, and it went really bad, and then finally got my life right? When that happened, all my friends that I played football with weren't my friends anymore. I mean, I couldn't run around with them anymore because they were going out all the time. They were doing stuff I wasn't supposed to do, so I couldn't hang out with them. Naturally, those relationships fell apart. My school friends didn't really want to have much to do with me anymore because I wasn't giving them the hookups I used to be giving them. So when you can't provide something for somebody else, then what good are you to them anymore? The only thing I had left was my church friends. I had people that genuinely love Jesus step in and say, we love you. We know you're messed up, but so are we. And we want you to be a part of what we are. So a funny story. So when I was in middle school, I may have told some of you guys this story before. When I was in middle school, my youth pastor came to us and he said, I want you guys to invite 2 people to church. I want you to invite the smallest person that you can think of, the easiest person you could think of to invite. So I automatically had a person in my head. And I want you to invite the biggest, scariest person that you can invite to church. And once you can do the biggest and once you can do the smallest, you can tell anybody about Jesus in the entire world. Because once you've done the easiest and once you've done the scariest, what is everybody else? And so I was like, sweet, I'll try it. So I went to school the next day, invited the smallest kid I could find. It was this guy named Alex. Great guy, still goes to church with me, or not with me, but grew up going to church with him and stuff. Great guy. Invited him, he was like, fine, I'll come. I kind of bullied him into coming, to be honest with you. Because he was like, I don't want to come with you. I was like, oh no, you're coming. He was like, okay, I'll come. And so he came with us. The other person was this really big guy. I think I told some of you guys about Alex a couple months ago, or a couple weeks ago. really good guy too. So, in a roundabout way, circle back. That little guy that I invited to church was the very first person to call me after I got in trouble and be like, yo, you want to come back to church with us all the time? You want to like get involved with the small group we've got going on? And I was like, this little dude I invited to church all these years ago is the dude that's still there for me when my life is getting hard. It was crazy. Even today, we were talking about it last week. I was like, yo, you remember when you did that? And he was like, I remember calling. I didn't think it was that big of a deal then. But it was the people in my life that were Christians that were the people that were still there for me. And those people honestly changed my entire life. When I hit like 10th grade, there was a group of about 6 of us that we all came together from church, and we all decided, you know, we're trying to live like Jesus. We're trying to do the right thing. Like, we're trying to live our lives right now. So let's do everything we can to do it. And so we did what we knew how to do. We went to cookout. We went to Waffle House late at night. So there used to be this lady at Waffle House on Independence. We used to call her Big Red. And she knew right when I walked in, I wanted 4 eggs over easy and 4 pieces of bacon extra limp. Because we used to go there so much and have like, just hang out. We meet up there at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night and just hang out. Extra limp. Extra limp. I like it like when it's like you can wrap it around your finger. That's the best kind of bacon to me.
Oh.
They were the people. They were the people that were at church every week, and if they weren't at church, we were calling each other like, "Hey, why aren't you here?" We used to do Bible studies. We used to sit around fires. We used to have so much fun. The night before I left for college for the first time, I sat outside with 3 of my best friends, and we had the best Jesus conversation I've had in my entire life. Because we had that Christian community. We all loved Jesus. We all wanted to be more like Jesus. And those have become some of the best friends I've had in my entire life. They were friends that came to our wedding. They were some of the only friends I still talk to from high school. They're the people that I know if something's going on, I can still call today. And it's been 8, 10 years, 15 with some of them. Just because we all love Jesus. We all had a purpose in life. We all had a purpose to our relationship, and that relationship is Jesus. So, that's our goal with this youth group for you guys. We don't just want to come together as a youth group to have fun. We like to have fun. We don't just want to come together to eat good food, but we do like to eat good food. But if we didn't have fun and we didn't have food, we would still do this for you guys. Because we know how important it is to have Christian community. So we're trying to do everything that we can to make this a place for you guys, that you guys can become friends with each other, that you guys can love Jesus together, that you guys can come here every week and learn something about Jesus, about church, about life, that can help you guys point each other to Jesus. Because us as leaders, we do everything we can to point you to Christ. But ultimately, we're not there with you Monday through Friday at school. We're not there with you playing sports. We're not there with you in life. But you guys see each other. You guys can text each other. You guys can call each other. You guys have those sort of relationships. And so we're doing everything we can to start off to kind of build those relationships, help you guys build those relationships with each other. So we ask you guys, we make that commitment to you. Every week, we'll make this a place that you guys can come together, build those relationships. We'll point you to Jesus. You guys can point each other to Jesus. If you make the commitment to us to want to live in that. My life would be totally different if I hadn't had a group of Christian friends around me. Remember when I talked about that house that was halfway on and halfway off? When that house fell off, if I wouldn't have had my Christian friends to pick me up, it never would have got back on. If I wouldn't have had my Christian friends to be there for me when my mom got diagnosed with cancer and stuff like that, if I wouldn't have had stuff when my dad was going through what he went through, if I wouldn't have got stuff when life got hard, and life got really hard for a while, I have no idea where I would be. So I encourage you guys, love Jesus, and look to each other to help each other love Jesus. Build that Christian community with each other, and we'll do everything we can to help. Let's pray. Jesus, we love you. We're grateful for you. We ask that you continue to make this a place where we can learn about you. Continue to make this a place that's fun, where we can point each other to you. And that through this, our lives will never be the same. That in 10, 12, 15 years, just like mine, these guys can look back on this time and be like, man, those are some of my best friends. Man, those were people that helped me through hard times. Man, those are people that showed me who Jesus was.